Hey YouTube, how's it going? My name's Jonathan, and in this video I got something really exciting for you. I'm going to be counting down the top 25 iOS games that you can get right now in 2019. Before I get started, 3 really quick things. First, I'm not going to be including games like PUBG, Fortnite, and Hearthstone, because honestly, if you haven't already heard of those games, I don't know what to tell you, and honestly, I wanted to highlight some more hidden gems which I feel like are underappreciated. Number 2, there aren't a whole lot of free-to-play games in this list. I much prefer games where you have to pay once up front and then don't have to worry about in-app purchases, so my list definitely reflects that. And then number 3, if one of your favorite games isn't in this list, chances are I've already talked about it in a previous video, so make sure to go back and check out my previous top 25 iOS games lists, and you'll find some other really great games in those. But with that said, let's go ahead and get right into this video with my number 25 pick, Voyageur, which is an RPG that's basically a little bit like a choose your own adventure book. The algorithmic nature of this game means that you're often presented with similar scenarios, and the interface isn't that complicated, but even when you're glossing over the text and just continuing your journey out into the unknown, this provides a whole lot of really compelling gameplay, not least when you begin to uncover the backstory behind what you're doing. Coming in at number 24 in this video is a game called Not Commute, which I like because it's a really interesting concept. All you're doing at the beginning is getting a car from point A to point B before the time runs out, but once you do that, the game actually takes you back to the beginning again, and has you repeat the trip with a second vehicle on the same course. But now it's harder because you actually have another driver on the road, yourself from before, and you have that driver yelling at you as you're doing the new car and getting it from point A to point B. Basically, this game just repeats itself until the screen is full of tons and tons of drivers, and it makes it really chaotic and fun to see how far you can get. Number 23 in this video is Pandemic the board game, in which you and up to 3 other friends work together to defeat 4 diseases sweeping across the globe. Each turn you travel from city to city, you treat sick people and research cures, hoping that you'll be able to contain the infections before you develop the cures and win the game. It's actually a really challenging experience and pretty tense when you're actually traveling around, and since everyone is involved, you actually get different roles which can come in really handy in different situations. The iOS version does work better as a solo experience than as a multiplayer collaboration, but with that said, either way, this is a really cool mobile adaptation of one of the most popular and innovative games of recent times. Up next in this video is Boson X, which is a little bit like an inverse version of Super Hexagon. It's a fast-paced 3D endless runner, but instead of controlling the protagonist, you actually control the entire accelerator that rotates as you hold left to right and leap gracefully through the air. If you fall through, unfortunately that's game over and you'll have to start again. What's really cool about this game is that it has a lot of variation. Each accelerator has its own theme and character, which as you progress get crazier and crazier, and then also once you hit 100%, your character blazes forward at double speeds, which makes it easier to get a high score, but even harder to control. Now number 21 in this video is Horizon Chase World Tour, which reminds me a whole lot of the classic SNES racer Top Gear. This is all about insane speed, vibrant graphics, and fighting your way from the back of the pack to the front every time. Honestly, Horizon Chase is the perfect way to bring a retro game into the modern world. You've got perfect touchscreen controls, a really cool career mode that's fun to progress through, and visuals that are both retro and modern. You've got the feel of an old school racer, but without the really low resolution that'll constantly be stabbing your eyes. Number 20 in this video is Desert Golfing, which is pretty much the most streamlined golf game you're going to find in iOS. This begins with you being invited to drag an arrow to direct a shot towards a hole, and it's basically just a classic 2D golf game. It's side-on, jagged, and has a lot of really unfriendly sand. What's really surprising about this game is how engaging it is. The colors change, the challenges increase in complexity, and whenever you find yourself getting frustrated by something, it just makes the experience of finally finishing a course that much more rewarding. Desert Golf is a game that doesn't try and do a whole lot, but what it does do, it does really well. Now number 19 in this video is pretty much just the opposite. Baldur's Gate is a game that relies on its breadth and depth to make it one of the best RPGs that you can find in the App Store right now. You've got a really busy interface and tiny characters, but you've also got an adventure of uncommon breadth with some great characters and a lot of flexibility in terms of your party of heroes and their abilities. While this might not look as exciting as more modern games, it offers weeks if not months of tactical combat, choices, and goblin bashing, and if you find you want even more, there's also a sequel available in the App Store. Next up in this video is Frost, a game that's halfway between a puzzler and just a beautiful, colorful experience. The goal of this game is to fill up orbs by directing swarms of flocking spirits their way. You can do that by carving a path through space with your finger, or combining different flocks to make the new creatures required to sate the appetites of whatever orb you're trying to fill. But honestly, what sets this game apart is the graphical experience behind it all, which makes each and every level feel like a gallery painting. Now if you're looking for something a little bit more fast-paced, my next pick in this video is Atomik RunGunJumpGun, which is a little bit like Jetpack Joyride, but without the jetpack and with a big gun. Basically, the gist of this game is you're shooting a massive gun at the ground in order to stay aloft, but that becomes a problem when there are massive saw blades and you need to shoot at them too. If you shoot ahead, you plunge towards the ground, but if you don't shoot at them, you'll meet your death regardless anyways. Each level is pretty short, but it's a really challenging experience, and I can't recommend it enough. Coming in at number 16 in this video is Banner Saga, which is a really interesting blend of adventure-style decision-making and turn-based grid combat. In each fight you've got a squad of up to 6 warriors, and the battles themselves play out a little bit similar to Final Fantasy. Each turn you've got the ability to move a hero a certain number of squares and then perform an action. Outside of combat though, you also have to make decisions about pretty much everything, and you'll pay for slip-ups down the road. The world building is really cool, you've got really cool graphics and artwork that are colourful and cartoonish, and the storytelling is based in Scandinavian mythology, which all makes for a really fascinating experience. Now the number 15 spot in this video goes to Eliss Infinity, which is based on one of the most successful and classic iOS games there is. The basic aim is to control, and by that I mean move, tear apart and combine different coloured planets in order to fit them into wormholes that sporadically appear. If planets of different colours collide, your energy reserves go down, and you can only replenish these by mopping up space dust that appears after you successfully get rid of a planet. In the Odyssey mode there are 25 different levels to conquer, and then after that you've got the Manic Infinity mode, which you'll be able to play for as long as you want. Now number 14 in this video goes to a game you may have already heard of, Spaceteam, which is basically the ultimate iOS party game. Each player's screen shows a spaceship dashboard with different dials and controls, and the ship itself at the top. The monitor is giving you updates about what you need to do to keep the ship flying, but the catch is, what you're supposed to do isn't often on your screen at all, it's on one of your friends, which means you end up shouting out commands like turn on the dangling shutter and please turn the Spectre bolt to 3, which make absolutely no sense in the real world, but make this game really fun. And speaking of crazy multiplayer games, next up in this video is Exploding Kittens, which is basically Russian roulette with detonating cats. This was originally a card game where players take turns to grab a card, and if they get an exploding kitten, they either have to defuse it or they're out of the game. Strategy comes by way of action cards, which allow you to peek at the deck, skip a turn, steal cards from an opponent, or draw from the bottom of the deck. All in all, this is just a really fun and crazy game that's just as fun on mobile as it is in the real world. Now number 12 in this video is Crashlands, which is unique because it's an RPG that's designed for the casual player. You've got an unlimited inventory so you can scavenge where and when you want without worry, and it's a little bit like Minecraft because you've got a build mode that lets you create a personalized base from the ground up with various benches for crafting weapons, armor, elixirs and a lot more. The tap to interact aspect of this game takes a little bit to get used to, but when you're battling monsters and exploring the massive open world, it's a game that you'll be able to get used to very quickly and start enjoying. Now number 11 in this video is a game that really defines what iOS hardware is capable of. It's Civilization 6, and when I say that, I don't mean like a stripped down cartoonish version, I mean the actual experience ported over from PC. You've got the same turn-based mechanics that allow you to explore a brand new world and aim to be the dominant civilization by conquering space, getting really rich, or just by beating everyone else back until your civilization is the only one left standing. There are a couple of drawbacks to this game. It's a little bit hard to navigate on a phone and it requires powerful hardware, but still, the fact they're even able to play Civilization at all on mobile is truly amazing. Coming up at number 10 in this video is Alto's Odyssey, which is a side-on endless sandboarding game where you zoom across windswept dunes, jump into the air to perform tricks, and leap across vast canyons. This is pretty similar to its predecessor Alto's Adventure, but you've got new biomes to explore and more importantly a rock wall ride move that can help you reach greater heights than ever before. Whether you're doing the more exciting main mode or the more relaxed Zen mode, either way this game is going to give you a really cool experience and simple graphics that complement it really well. Now coming in at number 9 is a game that's a really different take on a similar type of sport. It's TouchGrind Skate 2, which makes really innovative use of the touchscreen and your fingers to make two of your fingers become the legs that dictate how your board operates. This is definitely not a pick up and play game, and in some ways that's one of the things I like about this the best. You really need to work through the tutorials and fully master them before you try your hand at competition and jam sessions where you actually get punished for making mistakes. In a weird way, this game actually does feel like skating in a miniature, and it's a game that in some ways is better designed for touchscreen than for console controls. Now next up in this video is Paper.io 2, which is a game that's really popular both online and on mobile. In this game you face off against other players and have to capture as much territory as you can based on the color you're assigned. To beat those around you though, you really need to be strategic about where you're going. If an enemy touches your tail, it's game over, and that makes for a really interesting blend of being offensive and trying to capture as much territory as possible, while being really defensive to make sure you stay in the game. Now coming in at number 7 in this video is Flower, a game that's pretty much unlike any other choice on this list. In this game, you tilt your device and press the screen to control the wind, which propels a petal about tiny worlds. As your petal passes other flowers though, they also bloom into life, and before long you've got this cascade of petals following yours, which bestows colour to an otherwise dreary and drab world. What's great about this game, and what makes it really stand out, is the fact it's a true artistic experience. It was ported over from Sony consoles, but it honestly feels just as much at home on iOS as it does on consoles, and it feels like it would appeal to both non-gamers and gamers alike. Now next up at number 6 is Darkside, which is a really fantastic shooter game. With power-ups and twin-stick shooting controls, this is way more intense than Asteroids, which is the game that inspired it. Throughout its 100 levels, it's got a great mix of dizzying disorientation and pyrotechnics, as the planetoid spins beneath your fingers and countless things blow up all around you. What's great about this game is it brings an old concept to life in a new way, and proves that Asteroids is just as viable today as it was 20 or 30 years ago. Coming in next is Don't Starve Pocket Edition, which is honestly a really funny idea for a game. You're dumped in a hostile wilderness, and your goal is just to survive as long as you can. You're gonna die eventually, victory is non-existent in this game, but you just have to survive as long as possible against all possible odds, and against increasingly dangerous hazards of darkness, hunger, insanity, man-eating animals, and bad weather. This game was ported over from consoles, but again, it works really well on iOS, and you've got a whole bunch of different maps, resources, weather, and creatures, which keep this game feeling fresh and new every time. Don't Starve can be painful and time-consuming, but it's really addicting once you get going. Coming in at number 4 in this video is The Binding of Isaac Rebirth, which is a game you may already have heard of. In this game you control a small child roaming in a series of bleak, randomly generated dungeons and caves, and fighting hideously mutated versions of yourself. The left joystick controls movement, the right one controls the direction of your attacks, but if you die that's it, there's no saving at all. The Binding of Isaac is a tough game, and there are plenty of unlockable characters and items to discover, so even though each playthrough is going to be pretty brief, the game does have a fair bit of longevity. The quality of the gameplay and the unique atmosphere make this game a must-play, and it does have controller support as well. Now coming in at 3rd place in this video is Suzy Cube, a game which would honestly serve as an example for Nintendo if they ever wanted to bring a 3D Mario title to iOS. This game goes way beyond the 2D platformers that I often see in the App Store. This means you'll find yourself quickly sliding down icy mountains in 3D, following Suzy Cube as she runs side-on around a tower, and then delicately leaping between floating platforms as seen from above. You've also got some really cool boss battles, so this game is ambitious, entertaining, has really good controls, and a really good sense of pace and variety as you delve into worlds and discover their many different hidden secrets. Moving right along to 2nd place, I'm giving the nod to Lara Craft GO, which reworks some of the classic Tomb Raider games to a format that's perfect for iOS. In this game, you've got early Tomb Raider sense of adventure and solitude mixed with Monument Valley level beauty, as you work your way past traps crafted by an ancient civilization, with lots of blocky designs and elaborate moving parts. There are lots of snakes and deadly lizards which you'll need to shoot in the head, and even though the 5 chapters are pretty brief, the game is really appealing, and it's something that you'll want to take your time as you play with, rather than just rushing through. But having said all of that, my number 1 choice for the very best game you can get on iOS for iPhone and iPad right now is Grid Autosport. Look, one of the criticisms that you often get leveled at games on mobile is that they're not proper games like you get on consoles, and Grid Autosport is basically the living rebuttal to that argument. In this game you get the highly regarded simulation-oriented console PC racer squeezed into your iOS device. You've got a full complement of tracks and cars, 100 of each in fact, and it's almost bewildering how many settings you can adjust. The good news is, beginners will be able to ease themselves in gently, leaning on driving aids and nursing touring cars around tarmac tracks, but once you've mastered this game, you'll be able to play with beefier cars and gradually tweak the setup so you do more of the driving instead of the computer. This game requires a ton of perseverance and attention. You won't be able to barrel into a corner at full speed and expect for anything to happen other than a head-on collision, and this game is honestly like a newer version of like real racing. It's a truly amazing racing experience that defines what mobile gaming should be in 2019. But having said all of that, if you are interested in any of the games that I mentioned in this video, they're all listed in the comment section down below. I definitely spent a whole lot of time compiling this list, so be sure to give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And once again, thank you for watching this video, and I will see you next time.